March, that we would just kind of piggyback onto them. There would be a cost involved, but it would not be as much as if we held a special election on our own. So we can find out the cost from Paul Lux.
Sure. The only comment I got, and it's something to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Destin did, even though we've done that with our right-of-ways that reach the water, put that one on the ballot, and our building heights, which is part of our comp plan, is, and this issue is kind of similar to that, Mr. Braden. I just, when we run for office, especially council members who vote, they're supposed to represent the people and legislate. And if, the decisions made on them, I think there's a danger, and every time when there's a hot button item, to always pass it on to the electorate, just from the efficiency standpoint. We've got undergrounding coming up, and changes in the comp plan, so that's why a lot of places don't, do that. That would be the only thing that I would make mention of it. Me personally, I have no stake in the game. It's just something that, Mr. Destin kind of pointed it out in one of our previous meetings. So that's just for consideration. Go ahead.
I understand that, and trust me, I won't back down from a hot topic for a second. If we got a tough decision to make, we got to make one. But it just seems like that, these properties belong to the taxpayers. They belong to the citizens that live in Destin, and they pay taxes just like I do to take care of these. And I don't think I should have the right to give a piece or a whole part away, to somebody without. I would personally like to have a say-so on it, but it's something that actually belongs to the citizens of Destin. That's the only reason I bring it up.
Yeah, several years ago, we had discussed doing a charter amendment, not a charter amendment, a charter review, and then putting up a new charter for the citizens of Destin to vote on. And, the two things we have on the November ballot, the height restrictions and the right-of-way vacation, which is really similar to Parks vacation, what you're talking about, is something that could have gone on a charter review. And then put the entire charter up. And there's certain drawbacks to that, and I wouldn't be here for it, but I think I do personally think there's some things in our charter that could change for the better. And, and one of them, well, there were several things, but I think that's something y'all might want to look into, because we were really close to having a charter review 3 or 4 years ago. And, I won't be here for it, but I think it's needed, and it might be a time to kind of do it all in one fell swoop.
Yeah, versus every other election having a new item on there, just try to attack every recognized need or change, like what Mr. Brady presenting tonight.
And now's not the time for that, for the discussion of what to change in the charter, but I think there's some things you could definitely change for the better.
Thanks, sir. Any other comments? We have a motion, we have a second to put this on the ballot. Go ahead.
I was going to say too, we were presented with one petition, and then another one was discussed, and they both at the time had said they had around 500, which shows a pretty even divide, which is another reason to maybe let the people weigh in and see how it goes, because it's hard to decide when it's so evenly split.
And that's why the comments I made was based on the government's compromise between the two versus putting it on the ballot or us taking the heat. Well, he's saying this for this next council, maybe one of the first things we do this fall is begin a charter review process. So, but we do have a motion on the floor. In a second. So is there any further discussion? We'll go ahead.
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Mr. Braden, is your motion, is your intention to be a binding or non-binding? Or is this fact-finding to see where the citizens go, or is this going to be a binding?
No, this is binding.
Any comments? Got any? Go ahead.
As a threshold question, are we allowed to offer this as a question to the electorate? I don't know.
That's why I asked for the clarification before, because Councilmember Braden, as I understand it, is not asking about this specific park. He's not asking the voters about this specific park. He's talking about a charter amendment that would affect all parks in the city, similar to what we did with the right-of-way vacates, the waterfront right-of-way vacates. So basically, if I understand Mr. Braden correctly, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but the intent is to say that the city cannot give away its interest in any of the city parks.
That is correct.
Without a referendum.
But no, that's, okay, so then you would be putting into the charter a process for a non-binding referendum as well? Because you're saying that you would ask the people when the issue comes up? I missed that part.
Yeah, if it's, so just like a right-of-way, if somebody wants to take a piece of a park or the whole park, like in our neighborhoods, we got little parks, like in my daughter's neighborhood. It's just, it's a little small piece with one little bench down there, and the neighborhood might want to take that park one day. It'd have to go on the ballot, and people would have to vote on it.
Okay, so the charter amendment would be binding, and the question to the people, if there was a subsequent referendum on a specific park, that would be non-binding.
And I have a question for you, Kim. In this same line of thought, would that hinder us, say, we got the Joe Bayou's land, and then maybe somebody wanted to bequeath the city a different parcel of land that may be more desirable, but they want to trade what we already have? Would that prevent us from doing that, or would we have to go to, you know what I'm saying, just a land swap or something like that, or we find a better deal? I want to make sure that we, as a city, we don't lose that flexibility. Right. So, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here, make sure that if we go down this route, that we're not tying our hands as a city as well for something that we're not even thinking about now, like a land swap. What Mr. Braden's talking about is parks we have now, not giving any portion or parcel up, but I'm talking about undeveloped areas or land swaps or something else down the line. How could we formulate and still keep that flexibility?
So it would depend on how the charter amendment is written, what it would cover, but land swaps are difficult because of the uniqueness of land. It's hard to say that something is equivalent by size, or, every property has unique characteristics. So that would be difficult to memorialize into the charter, but we could create an exception for you to review. I'd probably have to think about it for a little bit on how to write it.
Yeah.
What did we have 2, 3, 4 years ago that we were swapping land or something, but we had to get equal or greater value?
Destin easement, wasn't it?
Was that it? There was something. We had, I don't know, if we swapped land, we had to get something of equal or greater value. I don't remember what that was.
We can put in value, but then there's also the question of, is the one we're giving away waterfront, and is the swap waterfront? Is that important to the city council? There's features of land that could take priority over others to you all, so that's why I said I might want to think about, and I could list out maybe some different situations that we could cover.
I don't mind continuing this discussion. I don't want to hitch our horse to I would like to give Ms. Kopp, who has been immensely talented in drafting these for us so far, an opportunity to bring us something back so that we can chew on some of these questions, because I have a couple of the questions about, could there be issues with land swap, or we better be ready that if we want to do improvements on a parcel, on a recreationally designated parcel, if we need to put in utility easements to run something to an improved building that we're adding to it, would that be a type of legal encumbrance that would trigger this sort of thing? So I think it needs time to be ironed out. I don't mind talking about it for sure. The goal of your motion tonight was to put it on the ballot, which I'm not sure exactly what I'm putting on quite yet.
What if, can I make a suggestion? What if, and I don't this is just a suggestion. What if I take your questions that you're all discussing as far as the charter amendment and bring that back at the same time as the questions that Councilmember Destin asked at the, I guess you said 30 days, and bring it all together?
Would you be willing to withdraw your motion and give Kim an opportunity to explore the road that you want us to go down? So we don't have to take an actual vote to put it on the ballot for
Yeah,
March?
yeah, because I really don't want to tie the city's hands. I really wanted to try to protect the property that the taxpayers own. You know, I don't think they would mind if we swapped parcels, you know. I really don't want to get rid of any waterfront property whatsoever, but any internal property, you know, as long as we're swapping equal for equal, the citizens aren't losing anything. You know, equal value. They may want to, there may be one parcel that's, you know, a half acre, but it's going to take 2 acres somewhere else that they have to have it as equal value. Yeah, I mean, that's really the thing I'm trying to do is just protect, you know, the property, just like we're doing our easements and, you know, really the height is a tough thing, but that's, you know, the height of buildings, I think is a whole different thing other than,
Right.
you know, yeah, it's great to let the people vote on that, but I think, you know, property that they're paying for every year to maintain, you know, they should have a right to say, you know, no, you know.
My only concern is if we're gonna put something on the ballot and we really haven't had time to flesh it all out, I'd sure like for Kim to take your thought process, put it on paper for the whole council to consider, and then, you know, and then we could take a vote on it then.
Yeah, I agree. I withdraw my motion.
Ms. Ramswell.
So I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were asking. So is the goal to essentially allow the people to decide whether we wanted to give up any of our parks? And if the vote was yes, then it would go in our charter. So if in the future, anybody came forward with a swap or a sale or anything, then essentially we'd have to make a decision and send it back to another referendum?
No, it would have to go on the next election, and you say, you know, that so-and-so wants to take this piece of land or whatever from the city. Do you agree or disagree on it? You know, taxpayers have to say so.
So why is this so different from the one that we're passing right now? Or
It's-
is on the referendum the right-of-way and? for the-
It's not, it's just parks instead of right-of-way, really. It's not that different. But the way I was envisioning it from what you were saying was to prohibit us from giving away any interest in our park completely unless it went to a non-binding referendum, and, you know, the council then took those results, and if they were in favor of giving away the interest, then you would decide at that point. But then we'd also have to have exceptions for land swaps that would not be prohibited if they are non-waterfront and of equal value, is what I heard.
And I think, not to delay the firehouse decision, but we can, on that particular, because that one's out in front of us today. You know, we've already had a workshop and all that, and Mr. Destin's already made provision for that decision to be dealt with later, you know, because we got some investigation to do. So I think that would give Kim time to put together the legal aspects of a charter amendment to address all futures, because the two we got on the ballot now, we don't have anybody trying to build a building taller than what our land development code is. In the future, if somebody does, they're gonna have to put it to a referendum. Same thing on our right-of-ways. We don't have any vacates or right-of-ways in front of us. We do have the proposal of Firehouse, but we can put that off until we see, you know, what she comes up with. And if that's the way, if we approve her amendment to the charter deal, then we can go ahead and get it on the ballot for March, and we'll let that be the deciding factor on leasing for the firehouse or what have you. In other words, we got time to go down the road that you want to go and let the voters decide.
The only time factor I see is I'd like to see this council deal with this, because we've been dealing with it for so long, and not have 4 new people sitting up here.
That's true.
That's dealing with it, that hadn't been dealing with it so long, and I don't think that's right to the people.
Well,
you know,
they get
before
the
new
vote
people.
here in about 3 weeks, so
Yeah,
maybe
for
those new
those-
candidates have some questions to answer
Right.
when it comes to firehouse and parks.
Yeah, 'cause we've had a whole lot of discussion and listened to public input
Yeah,
and all
good
that.
point.
And that's the only thing that I'm concerned about is, I mean, if it's, is it something we can get done?
Well, and that's the thing. So to put it on the charter, we would have to go through the same process that we just went through with the other proposed charter amendments, which means an ordinance would have to be drafted containing the ballot language. Then you'd need 2 readings of that before the city council. And at that point, we'd have to then, if you all approved it and adopted the ordinance, then we'd have to send it to the supervisor of elections and proceed with preparing for March. But just our ordinance alone would take 2 advertised public meetings. So the very earliest, if you directed it tonight, we would do it second meeting in October and first meeting in November. That would be the only way this council would see it. Otherwise, it will be the new council.
When is stuff due for the March?
Well, for November, it was August, so I'm going to assume for March, it's probably around January, but I'd verify that with Paul. So it's
So
the end of
basically, either
December.
way, the new council's going to have to deal with it either way, unless we vote on it before November 3rd.
If
So
you
we
voted-
can make a motion tonight, but we can still make changes to it at the first or second reading?
Well, that's correct. You could direct staff and I to prepare the ordinance and bring it back to you, and then you'd discuss it on first reading at the next meeting.
I'd like to see that happen. That way we at least get the ball rolling, and if it's rolling in the right direction, we go with it, keep rolling, and if not,
You would not be committed tonight. Just because you direct the ordinance does not mean the ordinance has to pass on first or second. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, if you'd like to make a motion to that effect, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to that.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Braden,
Yes.
Dr. Ramswell,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Overdeer,
No.
Mr. Marlar,
Yes.
Mr. Destin,
No.
Mr. Morgan.
Yes.
All right, ayes have it, so moved.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple more. Can we get an update on the 98 medians, the landscaping? Do we have anything on that?
100% plan was in the briefing materials, right?
I'm sorry.
I said the 100% plan is out. That was in our briefing documents. So that's where we're at, right?
That's right. We need to get them any comments that you all have concerning that 100% plan as soon as possible. But it's relatively unchanged from the 90%. We did get a proprietary use letter for a product to protect the sewer and water infrastructure into them several weeks ago, and that was kind of the last piece of the puzzle.
Do you want individual council members to make that final comment period directly to you, or do we do that up here at the dais?
You can email me directly if you have any questions or comments.
Do they have a start date yet at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thanks. And Royal Melbourne Heritage Park, when do we start construction on that?
Right now, we are awaiting for approval from Treasury. We have submitted all the documentation we need to the county. The county has turned that documentation into Treasury, and the Treasury needs to review that and then authorize us to move forward. So we're just waiting on that to happen. Once that happens, we will get a pre-construction scheduled and get them working quickly, which the contractor is ready to go. So hopefully that happens very soon.
Okay, thanks. And I did have, what was it on the harbor pump? I noticed on our project task tracking reports that I was reading, it said the harbor pump was running every week, everything's running great. And then all of a sudden it said the pump hadn't been running for several days. So I was a little confused with that, but what is the update with the harbor pump?
Sure. We had some concerned citizens when Hurricane Sally was coming through and the harbor pump was running. They didn't want us to add any additional water to the harbor, so as a courtesy, we just cut it off. It only runs for a few hours every day, and we kept it off for several days, and it's back up on its normal schedule now.
What is the story with replacing that pump? Are we still pursuing that?
Yes, sir, there is funding in FY '21 to replace the pump as well as two other components of that pumping station.
Okay, thank you. And they did have a beach vendor approach me Sunday and was a little confused about, he had to, was thinking he had to submit his contract. I guess he has a contract with a private condo or whatever to do their beach service, and the city wanted his contract that they had between them, and he didn't want his pricing and things known, public known. So can somebody on staff and tell us what that's all about?
Yeah, what it is the code reads that they just have to have a written agreement with the property owner. That's how the code reads at the time of application. It shouldn't be, it doesn't stay, some do give a contract and black out their numbers. It just has to be an agreement between the property owners that it is in effect at the time they do the app.
Okay, thanks. I said I would ask, and
Yes, sir.
I asked. And last, I've heard several times that I didn't like Gary. That I didn't like Gary Jarvis, didn't, for whatever reason, didn't like him. Yeah, I mean, you and I have never met, or I would say, or interacted before we got on this dais together. Yeah. But to say that is, you know, nothing can be further from the truth. Gary Jarvis and I go spend a weekend hunting or fishing or whatever and have a hell of a time. Now, Mayor Jarvis, yeah, I disagree with him every once in a while, but that's our job, and I can keep the two separate myself. Some people can, I don't guess, and that's okay, but I can. We can, and I've told everybody up here, you know, don't take this stuff personal. You know, when we leave here, let's go have a drink together, and you know, like we said, we're all family, so let's keep it there. But I just wanted to make that clear that, you know, no, Gary Jarvis is a great guy. It's Mayor Jarvis that I disagree with every once in a while, and he disagrees with me, and that's our job. So, other than that, that's all I got, Mayor. Thanks.
And neither one of us have toilet papered either one of our houses. Just to go on public record. We do have our disagreements here at the dais, and that's where they always stay. Dr. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe it was the workshop, we somehow got into the topic of the linear trail, and I'd asked Ray to put it on the agenda tonight so we could discuss revisiting that idea. And I noticed there was no documentation in the agenda, but what work has staff done in that regard? Has anything been done? Where do we stand with that? And what do we need to do to try to proceed with something?
I think, and I hope I'm not putting him on the spot, but I'm going to let Louis address this because he is over at the CRA committee that has kind of championed this project already.
Thank you. The CRA, the Town Center CRA committee has this project as one of their top priorities for this year. They will be, I believe at their next meeting, be formally recommending that we enter into a design phase of that project. We have some money set aside to begin that process if council so approves. And so there will be some renderings that will be shown, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome, that's great news. I was unaware that they were doing that, so excellent. Any idea, any time frame on when they would be getting something to us, like springish or?
As soon as the decision is made to move forward, yes.
Excellent, thank you. The next thing I had on here was shopping carts and the right-of-way along Commons Drive. Now, my understanding is that the north side of Commons is county, and I've heard that in some areas the south side is the city, and I'm not sure if that's accurate all along there, but regardless, we're having a huge level of shopping carts being left. I know Public Works and Public Safety was talking about it and how it's become really an eyesore, and I have actually seen carts left outside here at the annex. So I'm just wondering what we can do. Perhaps it's contacting the county or maybe brainstorming. I don't know what ideas we might all have to try to remedy that, because it really is an eyesore.
Yeah, and because of your item on here, we discussed this amongst staff again today. In the past, because of your husband, I drafted a letter and sent it to some of the apartment complexes in our area asking for them to cooperate. They're not technically in the city, but we did draft a letter and asked them to try to help us keep those shopping carts where they belong. But push come to shove, the conversation we had today was between our parks crew, our public works crew, and our code enforcement crew. I told them that I had a similar example to what you're talking about, except in this particular case, it was on Airport Road. I saw there was a cart on Airport Road. And I said, guys, it's really hard for me to pass a straight face test when the public sees a dozen trucks going by this cart every day, and none of them stop and take care of it. So right now, unless we run into some sort of liability that I'm not aware of, I've asked the staff that when they can safely do it, that they stop, if they're in a truck, retrieve the cart, preferably just return it to the retail business where it belongs, or if they can't do that, we can take it to the Public Works yard and call the retailer and ask them to come pick it up. So
I appreciate that, because sorry, I want to let everyone speak. It's become really ugly, and it downgrades the appearance of everything. Go ahead.
I did see last week 3 Walmart employees right here pushing a bunch of carts back towards Walmart. Wow. Yeah, so they must have got the message of the letter wrote. If not, they make great little reefs out in the bay.
Or take the basket off and go kart.
Excellent. Well,
The troubles of the big city. Golf carts. Hey, I tell you what, I wish we had authority, because we could make them put a cart caddy on their property, and then they just come by once a week and pick up the carts. Just that would be nice. Maybe you can put that in a letter and suggest they do that on their property, and then we can come by and collect them.
thank you for looking into that. And maybe if we don't see much improvement, we could reach out to the county, since a lot of that's on their right of way. But thank you very much for looking into that. I wanted to see if a post-Sally report had been put together in terms of financial damage to the beach and the beachfront. I saw a report that I believe Walton County put out, and it said based on erosion, blah, 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 they experienced and expected it to cost this much. Blah. Do we have anything like that, or has the county done anything like that yet?
So my understanding is that the county has been working with FEMA to go evaluate the losses on our beach. I don't have the numbers. I don't know if Mr. Warren has fixed his internet connection or not. He was in contact with the county about this a couple weeks back, or right after the storm, and they indicated to him that they were looking at it and trying to determine the amount of sand that they can then figure out the dollar amount from that of damages from Sally.
So is the county responsible for applying for that aid for the beaches that are in Destin, or are we?
I believe, and since this is new to me, I hope I'm saying the right thing. I believe that it would be both. We're both need to work together to get this remedied. The county would take the lead because of the TDC and the funding for items not covered by FEMA. But that's my understanding, and we can dig into it. We certainly are, and I know Mr. Warren. He actually got to take a week of vacation, so we had to allow him that. But he was working on that before that, and we're going to bring back some more information on that too.
Great, that'll be good to get. So when you get that, hopefully you'll get something from the county. If you would share that with us, that would be great, because clearly there was some devastation, and putting a number on that, I think is going to be important for grants, emergency response, et cetera.
Absolutely.
And I think there was an announcement that all of District 1 has been designated by FEMA for personal claims as well, not just our government and our city and the county, but individuals can go to FEMA and apply for assistance from Okaloosa County to the west. So we
You're
got
absolutely
clear.
right. Thanks for bringing that up, because certainly we have people that need to take advantage of that. All right, the last thing I have on here was the item that I added, and that's regarding, obviously, we're in the middle of some of the final planning stages for the Phase 3 of Noriega Point project. And based on the sort of surveys and preliminary drawings that have been provided to us, it was discovered that essentially the property line that is showing up on those surveys and the information for the project does not match what our actual deeded property line is. There's a difference of about 25 or 30 feet. And so I just wanted to direct staff or land use attorney, whomever is appropriate, to look into that, because certainly before we start doing those Phase 3 improvements, the building, the right-of-way extension, all of that, we need to really ensure that we're following the correct property line.
Sure, if council wants us to do that, we can have the city surveyor assist with that as well. Eric?
Yes. Yes, Eric, yes.
Do we need a formal motion, or is that more of a direction to look into that?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm good doing it as long as no one objects.
Perfect, that's all I have tonight.
All right, thank you very much. I think consensus from the council. Take a shot at it. Mr. Mitchell, your turn.
Thank you. First of all, with Dr. Ramswell, we're talking about the grocery carts. That's been a problem year after year. And I can tell you 3 or 4 years ago, again, this was a public works story, we reached out to one of the major players in that, and they actually contracted with a pickup truck, and they were going around in the afternoon and picking up the carts at least every other day. So that might be something else to explore, because it was pretty successful once we identified the problem to them. So just FYI. For those that don't know, I had texted our IT folks while we were in the middle of this meeting, because we had gotten several emails from public saying that our live stream wasn't working. I know Matthew worked on it as well, and they got it fixed, but just so everybody knows that we weren't broadcasting live initially, and that's been corrected. In our special workshop we had with the fire department, Councilmember Destin came up with a laundry list of things that they wanted us to work on, the city to work on. Lance, is there any update on that list?
I have an update, Councilmember Menschel. It's Kim. I reached out to the fire district and asked them to set up a meeting with me to kind of work through some of those questions, because a lot of them obviously require information from them and input from them. Some of it is on our end. They are going to probably want to set that up after tonight. They were, I think, wanting to see if anything changed tonight. So I also forwarded it to their attorney today. So we'll work on those. And then for the questions related to the city, Kyle and I have talked about those, and I think we're on the same page with those two questions. So, I mean, we can answer those two now, or we can just do it all at once, which is what I was thinking on the night at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you. One of the, to me, out of that workshop, one of the most significant things that I heard was when Mr. excuse me, when Mr. Buckingham mentioned the fact that he would, and he was pretty much speaking on behalf of the fire department, obviously, with the rest of the people there, but he said he would be in favor of the cement plant. So obviously, regardless what we do with Rodney's suggestion about putting it on the ballot or something like that, that is an option as opposed to having a Clement Taylor Park seems, that was a very important comment that Commissioner Buckingham made. Putting it at the park, at the cement plant. So obviously we need to follow up on that because that might be the best of all worlds, all things considered, giving them what they need and not taking away the park. My next thing is a question for Louis regarding the Corps of Engineers and the harbor study. I know they were going back for funding, Louis. Do we have any update on that, the capacity study?
Not as of the last time that one of you asked the question. I reported then, and there still is a status at this point that we're waiting for word from the federal government that they have approved our proposed survey for the capacity study, and also to release the funding that is due to the Army Corps.
Okay, just trying to get an update on that. Thank you. Next, want to talk about the submerged land lease for Noriega Point. Lance, and I guess the city land use attorney, if you all want to give an update at this point, and then I'll move on from there. What's the status of that submerged land lease application?
As we discussed on our call, that's pretty much the status, but for the benefit of the rest of the council that I didn't update yet, the submerged land lease is now in my court. I've got the draft lease application and survey from Parks and Rec staff and Public Works, Mike Burgess, respectively. And then I intend to finalize a draft and then take it to council on October 19th before we submit it to DEP, just to make sure council is good with how it looks.
Okay, and yes, we did discuss that, but I wanted everybody to hear that. With that as a backdrop, I want to review some of the things that's transpired with this submerged land lease. Dr. Ramswell first brought this to everybody's attention and made the motion back in May the 4th. It's been 5 months. 5 long months, and we still don't have this application completed. You look at the task orders, and there was quite a bit of debate about the money we spent. Obviously, Mayor, like you just said with Rodney, have differences of agreement up here. You had a difference of agreement about the money was being spent, and I understand that for the surveys. The fact of the matter is, Dr. Ramswell was very clear from the beginning what she wanted, and then subsequent to that, I had quite a bit of conversation with numerous city people regarding the survey. And even with those conversations, we continue not to get the surveys correct. There were 3 different task orders produced for this survey. And the third task order, which was dated August the 18th, is the most troubling because it specifically identifies a mean high water line only, and it's completely opposite of the other 2 surveys. So the reality of it is, from the information we have, we don't have any continuity with the surveys. Every time a survey was done, something else was asked for, and it was very clear from the onset what was required. So although we have these 3 surveys and we spent a lot of money, we're not talking apples and apples, so I don't know if it's going to be sufficient or not. So I would just ask you, again, more of a delay, but if we submit this with an improper survey, it's going to get kicked back, just like when we submitted the paperwork to do Airport Road. Okay, and it got kicked back because the document wasn't done properly. We need to try to verify and make sure the 3 surveys we have will cut the mustard before we submit the application.
You want to respond to that, Kim? She's taking
Okay.
it. I don't know who would respond to that.
I'm saying
None of us
okay.
are surveyors.
Well, yeah, but we'll try to figure out the survey issues before we submit it. And that's why we're going to bring it to council on the 19th as well, to make sure everybody's on the same page with what we submit. But on the staff level, we'll figure out what we believe after discussions with DEP and reviewing the application requirements, what we believe is the correct survey.
What was the additional survey you asked for, Dr. Ramswell, on the other side? Because the
The
first
last
survey
one-
was the abatement, but then you were asking for a survey on the
No,
harbor
That's
side?
not-
No, the first time I asked, it was for all the way around the point, but it was only done around the embayments. So then we clarified that it was supposed to be all the way around. They did it all the way around, but they didn't continue it in front of the additional sand accretion down at the end, the south end of Noriega Point. So that was the third addition.
And since all three of those surveys, we had a hurricane, so now everything looks different.
Should I wait until after this weekend?
Well, I was going to kind of bring that up, because unfortunately, when we're not dealing with granite rock, we're dealing with sand that moves. So your surveys are, that's just, I'm just bringing the fact that a survey is almost kind of like technology, see? It's like it's already obsolete.
Well, and that's, one reason why it's problematic. Sorry, I don't mean to jump into your thing, Mr. Mitchell, but
Please do.
if this had been done the way it was requested the first time, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. And I know there was some difficulty getting it across to the surveys and everything, but, like he said, May 4th, and here we are, October. It's difficult to understand why it did take so long.
Can staff answer that? Give us a kind of an idea of why it's taking so long? Is it because of the surveys? Do we
No.
have 3 different surveys? Why
No,
5 months?
And just my understanding of the entire thing, and I'm the one who ordered the surveys with 3 task orders. The first 2 task orders were for Noriega Point proper. Okay, so that was from property line. The property line on Noriega Point kind of runs from the northeast to the southwest. And it took up the whole point, and it established a buffer area where the submerged land lease would apply. The third task order, which resulted in the second survey, was simply a mean high water line with a few of the improvements marked, and that was an informational survey. And to my understanding, was not to be associated with a lease at that time. That was my understanding.
Why did we need?
And
Didn't we request that it was supposed to use the exterior property boundaries? Not on there.
What I was tasked to do was to do the mean high water using, and then also adding the information from the trustee's deed and a quitclaim deed from 2016 and a little earlier. And I provided all that to the surveyor. Now, if what we want is an extension, that would not be that big of a deal. I would just have to contact the surveyor and have him do the call-outs for that 30-foot buffer area. It wouldn't be that big of a deal.
it's,
Simple.
okay, Michael, let's go back to this, because this has got to be a lesson learned type thing. This thing was assigned, first of all, to the Parks and Recreation Director. Okay, we had countless conversations back and forth and emails with that, trying to identify what was done. This has been going on for 5 months. Then all of a sudden, when that wasn't accomplished, all of a sudden it's in your ballpark, Michael. And I understand what you've done. But now what you're saying about this third thing, you were tasked to go to only the mean high water line. There lies the problem. Like I said in the onset of this thing, it's not apples and apples. It was very clear from the onset of this thing to survey the entire point. And we've been piecemealing, and in effect wasting money, because every time we task to do it, it's the wrong tasking. And nothing has changed since the beginning. So we just have to, again, we're 5 months into it, and we're probably wasted some money on taskings that we shouldn't have done, because it's not the same original tasking that Dr. Ramswell asked. So moving on from this, okay, we have to just do what we need to do to make sure the surveys are apples to apples, and then submit it. Comment?
Any comments?
I'll just get with Ms. Kopp tomorrow, and we can discuss this, and I can consult with Councilor Ramswell one more time, make sure that we get.
That That was
one survey.
That was going to be my suggestion, to talk to Dr. Ramswell, so that way there's no more misunderstanding on what's required. Okay, thank you on that. Okay, moving on. Lance, I sent you an email regarding the sunshine issue from the last meeting. Do you have any follow-up on that?
Yeah, I had a discussion with the city attorney. Do you want to address what we plan to do moving forward on that? And thank you for that email.
Okay, and we don't necessarily have to do it publicly. I didn't get any response from you, and I just wanted to make sure it was being rectified. We just need to remedy it, and that's all we need to do.
And Steve, we do have a plan in place to remedy it at the next meeting, so we'll do that.
Okay, fantastic. And finally, just I guess, request or info to people running. This is election time, okay? And unlike any other election anybody's had with COVID, this is such a unique situation. And certainly myself and 3 other folks up here aren't running. But for the candidates that are running, okay, I've had so many people call and ask questions, gee, who do you support and who do you know? And the truth of the matter is, and it might just be me, I've only had 2 candidates reach out to me personally. And I would just tell all the other candidates, I realize this is a very unusual time. There's not candidate forums, but the election's coming. And y'all better pick up the pace and start getting some information out there, because there's a lot of people with questions. I tell them to do their research and to call individual candidates, go online and things like that. But just as a suggestion, ladies and gentlemen, y'all need to do whatever you can, because obviously this is a very unique time, and I wish them all the best, but they got to do something else to get some more information out there because of the times we live in. And that's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Overdare.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Marlar, you had something you wanted to talk about?
First off, I wanted to say something about this. Last night, believe it or not, a lot of people in Destin did not know this, we had over 2,000 people here at a concert at the Kelly facilities behind Lutheran Church. And it was a very good outdoor concert, and everything went well. But just to show you that Destin gets an influx of a large amount of people at one time. And I know there was I was one of the ticket takers, and I was at this event, and it was verified that we had a little over 2,000 people at this particular concert. That ground, when I got there was nothing on the ground but a sea of people about an hour later. But I just wanted to let that known that the concerts that they do at Kelly, with the Kelly Trust and with the Kelly Fine Arts and stuff, brings a lot of people into Destin that normally wouldn't come. They had people from 3 different states to come to this particular concert, which was a couple of Christian groups. Anyway, we're going to go back and beat the dead horse with the fire department again.
Karen, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
Are they gonna, I know they do the concerts on Thursday night, are they gonna start doing stuff on Saturday and Sunday night there, or do you know, or is it just?
This was a planned concert from a long time ago, and this was actually the first time this particular group was able to do it with the public out there. They'd been doing drive-in, people sitting in their cars kind of concerts for the last about 3 months now. This was their first, and they were so happy to be able to do a more interactive one with the people. Of course, they did the social distancing was used, but they had a good interaction with a lot of different people.
Well, it's crystal clear, and anybody, you can hear it.
Oh yeah,
Sounded pretty good.
I texted that I was there, and I got a lot of text backs from a lot of people. We can hear it from our balconies, but they weren't complaining. They were actually happy. So that was good. I've had several people on both sides of the fence of the fire department issue with the park ask that if possible, and I know Kim and Kyle, y'all been working on this, what Mr. Destin asked for the questions, but they would like, if possible, that this seated council make a decision one way or the other before the new council gets in place, because they're afraid that everything will start all over again, and we'll be sitting here 6 months. They'll be sitting here 6 to 8 months from now. I know I've talked to several people about with the fire department and several, as I said, well, both sides of the fence. Is there any possible way? I don't think we can do it for the October meeting, but is there any possible way we can come up for the second reading. I know we already have an ordinance on the second reading, win or lose on the second reading but if we can do that on the first meeting in November, if you can't do it next October, the next meeting in October. Is it possible?
Well, we have to get answers to all the questions, and like I said, I reached out to the fire district, at least to one of them, one of the commissioners, and they weren't ready to discuss it yet, so that has caused a delay that's out of our hands, but I don't know how we can promise you that we're going to go to second reading without addressing the outstanding issues, because we don't know if the lease needs to be modified, and if it does, the ordinance would have to go back to first reading. So maybe we can take it in November based on what council wants us to do. But if we want answers to the questions, I don't know that we can answer that yet tonight for sure.
Okay, well, can you give me an answer by the next meeting, by the next October meeting, if we can do it on the first meeting in November? Would that work?
I will reach out to the fire district again, and if they can get us that information on time, then we can talk about it again on the 19th,
Okay.
yeah.
As I said, I've got citizens on both sides of the fence that don't want it to be passed the buck to the next council, because although several of the candidates know what's going on, several don't exactly have all the details that they need, and, you know, this might get, as Mr. Mitchell says, kicked around and kicked the can a couple more times, and we've got citizens on both sides that would prefer not to have to keep kicking the can. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Destin?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Morgan?
Nothing tonight.
And nothing from me either. Ms. Cobb?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Bowman does.
Yeah, I have a couple items. First, I did just want to remind council that this afternoon, I sent out a notes and kind of question outline for the special meeting that is tomorrow regarding the undergrounding project manager. I just encourage council to look at that because it has some good information in there. Chef Wright drafted the majority of it. I think it'll help the meeting run very smoothly. We'll have, it's at 6 tomorrow. It's an important meeting, as essentially what will happen is council will rank the 3 applicants and then direct us to enter into negotiations with your top ranked applicant. If we can't reach an agreement with them, then the next, and then the next. So it's an important meeting for the undergrounding in the future of the city in that regard. We'll have 3 physical copies for all council members in attendance of those questions and notes that you can take in the same document. That's 3 documents so that you can take notes on each respondent, each bidder. And keep in mind that so long as you keep your notes to yourself, so they don't become public records, but once they become communicated, that's when they will become public records. But personal notes you keep to yourself won't be. So just keep that in mind if you want that type of protection. With that, if you guys have no questions leading up to that, of course, we'll have a full meeting and full presentations tomorrow. But I'll move on to my second item.
Kyle, I have a question.
Sure.
All right. How are you going to handle this with Skip and I?
So I haven't addressed this with Lance. I'm sure that we could provide the 3 written copies if you guys so need. I did send out the email, so if you have a printer at home, you can print out 3 copies. However you guys would like us to address it, I'm sure we can address it.
But I guess I'm sorry, Skip, go ahead, please.
Yeah, we've got the packages. I mean, they are emailed.
Yeah, no, but I got that. I just meant when we've done scoring in the past, it was turned in and you all tallied it then. So how are we going to transmit our scores to you? That's all I'm asking.
I see. That's a good question. I believe I'll have to defer to Jeff Kozad on this. He's been kind of planning this meeting. So.
I had conversations with Chef Wright, and he indicated that we could have the council members verbally give those scores and then have Ray tally those scores, and then we would reveal the outcome of those tallies.
Oh, can I just comment? I know the last time we did some sort of bidding process that we had it kicked back once and maybe twice. Can we make sure that that's okay in terms of statutes and requirements and all of that stuff before we say we think it's okay?
Yeah, this is a little bit less complicated because the city's using its own money. The last times it got kicked back were because federal funds were in play, and there were certain federal statutes that were not followed at the meeting.
Okay,
so
as long as you're sure.
Okay, Kyle, to that regard, I mean, just telling it like it is, and the last time, the bottom line is, a council member voted 0 on a subject, company. Okay, is there any requirement or any prohibition from that? I don't think it would get to that point, but all bets are off now. You can score whatever way you want to score them.
I can speak to that. The arrangement is right now that we are going to have the council members vote for their basically first, second, and third pick. So, and that's the only question there basically is, which firm do you feel would be the best choice, second best, and third best choice?
Okay, great. Just want to make it clear so there's no, like Dr. Ramswell said, we just don't want any hiccups.
Didn't you say there would be scoring?
Yeah,
And that they-
you're just going to be ranking the applicants, essentially. It's a very simple process we've chosen.
Would there be an example for the scoring, or is it just going to be 1, 2, 3?
It's just 1, 2, 3.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
Next, I have an update in the William C. Carter versus City of Destin, the enclave litigation. This is with the foliage down there in Crystal Beach. Lance and I attended a mediation last week along with our insurance litigation attorney, Eric Krebs. It was a long day, but eventually we did reach a settlement that is contingent on council approval. So at this time, I'm requesting that council schedule an executive session pursuant to section 286.0118 Florida statutes in the case of William C. Carter versus City of Destin, Florida et al., case number 2016 CA 3085 in the Circuit Court of the First Judicial Circuit in and for Okaloosa County. I'm requesting the executive session begin October 19th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. This is 30 minutes before our regular meeting on that day. The executive session will be recorded by a certified court reporter. A transcript will be made part of the public record upon conclusion of the litigation. Participants in the executive session will be council members Chatham Morgan, Parker Destin, Kyron Marler, Skip Overdyer, Preble Ramswell, Stephen Minshall, Rodney Braden, Mayor Gary Jarvis, City Manager Lance Johnson, City Attorney Kyle Bauman, City Land Use Attorney Kimberly Romano Kopp, and the city's litigation attorney Eric Krebs. I do have a recommended motion on the agenda item report if a council member would indulge me there.
I'm going to give notice right now. I'm going to be out of town on the 19th, so Mayor Pro Tem Ramswell will be in my replacement.
So noted.
What's your motion? What's the motion you want to do?
Yeah, there's a recommended motion on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Go ahead, sir.
I move to schedule an executive session pursuant to section 286.011, parent 8, Florida statutes in the case of William C. Carter versus City of Destin, Florida et al., case number 2016-CA-3085 on October 19th, 2020, beginning at 5:30 p.m.
I'll
Second.
that.
Okay, I got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Morgan.
Yes.
Mr. Destin?
Yes.
Mr. Marlar?
Yes.
Mr. Overdeer?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Ramswell?
Yes.
And Mr. Braden?
Yes.
So moved.
I appreciate it. I have nothing further.
All right, well, the last portion of tonight's meeting will be our final public comment period. Has anybody got any comments? Yep, we do. I almost got to hit the hammer. James, do you have anybody queued up for comment? No.
No, sir, not at this time.
Ray? No? Go ahead, ma'am. There you go.
Jan Repper, 707 Main Street. First of all, I really couldn't hear a lot what was going on up here. The speaker systems are not really good back here. But the rooster ordinance really got my attention. I'm not sure why it was brought up, but I would have been in favor of it back in 1980. We weren't a city then. But I had a neighbor. I lived on the corner of Willow and Calhoun. My house didn't have any heat or air conditioning. It was a dump. The house is still there, but it looks a lot better. But I had a neighbor that had a rooster. And at that time, I was frequenting the Green Knight and Nighttown and a lot of the haunts around here, and I was working in the service industry.
You're dating yourself.
But this, I was only 10. I looked old for my age back then. But anyway, this rooster, every time I came home and turned on my light, would start crowing. So all my neighbors knew what time I came in. If it was 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, they knew I was having a pretty good time back then. So unfortunately, we weren't a city then, so I couldn't complain about my rooster crowing. But I just wanted to leave on a lighter note tonight. But I was here mainly for the fire department and Clement Taylor. I wanted to keep up with what was going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Going once, going twice. God bless everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe. Meeting adjourned.